Welcome back to the kitchen, everybody. So now it's February. I think we had a good break here with the summer, and the northern hemisphere has been maybe cold. You've been cuddling up near the fire, but it is time to resume the normal schedule on the channel and to get back into the kitchen. So before we start, I'd like to say thank you, by the way, to all the comments from the previous video on soups and all the techniques from Escoffier, and another big thanks to so many of you that actually enroll in the course. I didn't know that soups was such a loved subject, but it's really great to see, and thanks for joining our French Cooking Academy Cooking Club. Now, for this new beginning on here, we're going to start with a brand new 3-part series where we're going to be exploring something we've touched on before, which is the compound butters, also known as flavored butters. So these are the garlic butter, the herb butter, and we've made on the channel already the red wine butter from Escoffier. These types of butters, you made them, you mix butter with some ingredients, and typically it is served over a steak or a piece of meat. But here, what we're going to do, we're going to go one step further, and you're going to see and discover and learn how we can create new types of flavored butter and then use them not on top of a steak, but as part of a recipe to cook ingredients and flavor a sauce. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, you hit that ring, that bell button not to miss any of the updates that's going to be coming, because that series is going to be really valuable. You're going to be able to learn first how to make the butter and then how to use it in a real life situation through a recipe that is unique and you've never seen before. So if that's of interest, let's begin with our first recipe, taking from our dear Fernand Point, the man that was bigger than life in size and personality and most iconic chef of France that ever existed. Let's begin. Yes, so Fernand Point, the iconic French chef, had a restaurant called La Pyramide in Vienna, and it was the place where all the gastronomes, food critics, poets, writers, actors, celebrities, politicians, even the president used to eat. And he was known to dedicate his recipe sometimes to some person, like here, Sacha Guitry, the Poulard Sacha Guitry we're going to do today, was a famous French actor and screenwriter. And he was really someone that likes something which was the crayfish butter. Crayfish butter used to be a very widely used compound butter in his book, but nowadays they are hard to find. Crayfish, they're sweetwater crayfish, picture on the screen on here. So instead of making the crayfish butter, he decided to transform that for home into a more simple prawn butter that is very simple to make at home, and we're going to be using to make that recipe. If you even intend to get this book, you need to know that the recipe from Fernand Point do not give you any instructions in details and no precise or no ingredients measurement whatsoever. All what you have is an outline of the recipe, what has been used, and the rest, it is up to you to interpret the recipe the way you want. So let's do this and see how we go. Let's begin by making the famous prawn butter. I'm using here tiger prawn, because they're really tasty, and these are cooked prawn. And the reason I've got cooked prawns is because there's two ways to make the prawn butter, sometimes called the red butter. There's the convoluted way you make this butter using raw prawns. You have to go on the stove, cook the shells, use butter, vegetables, etc. So you get more colors and more flavor. But there is a fast way that can be used that is really handy for home, where you're going to be using the cooked prawn, mostly the flesh, just with some butter, and a little bit typically cayenne pepper, but I'm going to use an Aleppo chili flakes. I think I like that. And we're just going to use a stick blender, so it's a very, very fast process. So let me show you how it's done. Now, to proceed, it is very simple. You're going to have your prawn. I'm going to show you one and you do the rest. You're going to need the bowl for the shells. And this is something that we're going to use to get what we call in English it's called the roux, but we call it the corail, the red part inside the prawn, and a little knife and a paper towel because it's very messy. So the whole thing is very simple. Cooked prawn, they need to be cold, from the fridge, and you take them, and first we're going to snap the heads off, and we're going to look inside. There's always sometimes a little bits of red stuff, like this thing here, that we're going to try to get because this is full of taste, and we really want to have this little mixture in our butter. Okay, getting you a bit close. So when it's done, you got your prawn, and most important, you devein. So you clean your knife, you make an incision on the top, on the back of the prawn on here. Okay, and you open to see if there is any black. So there's nothing in here because they're very clean, these ones. But sometimes you're going to have the intestine. There's a track with sand and anything that's going to really give a nasty taste to anything in some grit. So you're going to remove that. Here there's nothing there, so I'm fine. Now to make the butter, we're going to be using a stick blender, a little spatula. You need some kind of container. I'm using this, it was from an immersion blender kind of container, a plastic container. You can use a glass container, it doesn't matter. And we're going to be using this like that, okay? Going up and down to, you know, process everything. So we start with anything that's in the heads. Okay, we put this into the little container. We follow with all of the little bits of prawn. So I've cut them into manageable pieces on here. And then we just finish with the butter. And there's no seasoning right now. When everything is in, you take your stick blender, maximum speed, and very slowly, we're gonna go like this and process everything. It's a bit of a mucking around here if you don't have the right container, but you go bit by bit like this, and I'll show you the result the more it gets into a puree. The final step, you put all the butter through a sieve. Don't use a fine mesh because it's a nightmare. And using a hard spatula, and you're gonna have to push it down to make sure there's no hard bits, no shells, etc., etc. Now, if the sieve process is bothering you, just skip the whole thing. This is for restaurant, for home. You can just use the butter as is. Most important here, and it's already salty with the prawns because they're from the sea, but a little bit of cayenne pepper. Or here I'm putting some chili flakes. Up to you for a bit of heat for the recipe and the chicken. And you just mix the whole thing together. And we're done. You can refrigerate this, but we're going to be using it straight away. So I'm not going to bother making a log or anything. I'm going to keep this in my fridge, and we're going to start the recipe. So now that the prawn butter is ready, the rest is pretty straightforward, and the type of recipe you'll find with a lot of chefs. So we've got 2 chicken breasts with the wing attached. I've got the rest of the bits of wing to cut in pieces to give more flavor. We're going to cook this in the mirepoix, onion, carrot, and celery. We're going to have some flavor, Madeira wine, which is a fortified Portuguese wine. This is medium dry, white wine, cream, and then we're going to add some cooking juice of button mushroom. For the garnish, typically from the real recipe, there's lots of expensive ingredients. Crayfish, morels, truffles, rooster giblets, all kinds of things. We don't have that. I'm going to serve this with just button mushroom. I had some morels, happily, that I'm going to saute in butter and parsley to add on top of the chicken when it's done, but you can serve this with some steamed carrot, with some mushrooms, and even if you want, some macaronis, which is a standard thing to serve, or a pilaf rice for the home version, okay? So let's begin. As you will see, it's very simple. The first thing you're gonna do here is to white cook the mushroom. So basically we're poaching the mushroom because in this recipe, actually, there's not much coloring, even for the chicken, as you will discover. So we've got all the mushrooms in the pan, cut in quarters. We're gonna add some water, so to barely not even cover the mushroom, so the water is almost covering the mushrooms on here. We're gonna have some salt, we're gonna add some pepper, we're gonna add about 20 grams or more of butter, and we're gonna add as well a little bit of lemon juice. Okay, and then I'm gonna put my heat on, and I'm bringing this to a simmer. I've got a light boil, I'm reducing my heat, and I'm gonna mix everything together. And all what we're going to do is to reduce the heat and leave this to simmer on the side of the stove and forget about it while we're preparing the chicken. So now that the mushrooms are simmering on the side, what are we going to do? We're going to take a pan, I like to use a saute pan on here, and immediately we're going to use the butter that we've made. Okay, so we're going to use a good tablespoon of prawn butter, and we're going to start to cook the chicken, what we call in French, cuire à blanc. That means cooking the chicken with the minimum amount of coloring. Okay, so I'm putting the heat on really kind of low, and I'm gonna mix this with a little bit of normal butter to make sure we have enough fat in there, and I'm gonna wait for this to melt. So I've got my special base, and now I'm gonna take my chicken. You can take skin down or not. I'm gonna struck skin down because we're really using low heat, so it doesn't matter. And gently, I'm gonna cook this with the little piece of wings. So now you can hear, and the chicken or the butter is chanting. And you can hear that little noise. Okay. So now, I'm just going to turn it around because this is the color that we want. We want anything more than that. So cuire à blanc, it's like this. You really just almost like, it's almost like poaching the chicken. So this is enough. I'm going to now reserve this onto a tray because we're not finished. It has to cook in all the aromatics, the cream, etc. So first step, we take this off. So from here, immediately, we're going to add the aromatics, the carrots, the celery in here, And like we always do, we're going to leave these to cook just for a few minutes to release the flavors. So after 3 to, you can push to 5 minutes, we're going to deglaze. You can see there's no coloring, but it starts to have some slight coloring on here. So I'm raising the heat now, and we're going to do the standard things we always do in French cooking. So what do you think that is? It is a deglazing. Okay, so we had some aromatics, and because it's not a, a raging boil, I'm going to add a bit of wine in there. Detach all of the juices, and as always, high heat, and I'm going to reduce this at least by half. And now we're going to add some Madeira wine. So 2 different alcohol, not too much of reducing here, so just 1 or 2 minutes, because Madeira, we want this nice flavor. From here, basically, we're supposed to add a bouquet garni in here. We have some cream. I'm not sure if I'm going to add enough on here, maybe some more. Okay, and we also need to have some of the cooking juices from the mushrooms. So this is mushrooms that are boiling. So I'm scooping with a little thing here. I'm scooping a few of this water here, this juice. Maybe I can put a few mushrooms in there for the taste. And boom, maybe 1 ladle or 2. It's upon to interpretation, so very good. Put this back on, mixing the whole lot on here. Look at these little colors. And from here, the chicken is going back in. And up. Putting this in here, putting that on there, maybe like that, up. And gently, we're now going to be cooking the chicken, so partly covered with a lid, and maybe a maximum 7 minutes on each side or something like that, on a simmer. So let's bring this to a simmer first. Wow, it's simmering, and do you see these colors I'm getting there? I'm really getting excited. Now this is absolutely special. 7 minutes on a timer, let's go. Now while the chicken is trying to cook for the 7 minutes, I'm going to quickly do the morels. So just in butter, so I've got a pan with butter. The morels are here, and I'm going to, oh, that's super fast, huh? Morels are going in, up. Salt, a bit of pepper, you know what, a bit of parsley on there, boom. And that will do, and I'm going to use this just as an extra garnish with the other mushrooms on the plate to try to attach a little luxury. The time is up another 7 minutes, so in total I think we've got like 14 minutes plus the time we had before, and we've got that lovely cream sauce on there that's covering. And from here I'm gonna put this on a tray and keep these breasts warm while we finish the sauce, which is the final step and most important step. And at my favorite time, which is the sauce making. So the sauce, you don't lose time, you take another pan, you take a sieve, and we're gonna pass all of this through. It's a short sauce, remember there's only 2 breasts, so we don't have too much, it's normal. Now the sauce, Fernand Point is saying that you can adjust now with a little bit of Madeira wine, and of course the prawn butter. So I've tried the sauce, it's pretty damn good already, and I'm just gonna add maybe a teaspoon or 2 of Madeira. I'm just gonna see how it goes. I've got my heat on a simmer here because we're gonna thicken the sauce a bit. Taste it. We could add a little bit more. We don't want that nutty flavor to overpower. And then I'm going to take your whisk, and slowly from here on very, very low heat with that boiling, we're going to start to incorporate some of that crayfish, crayfish, I keep on saying this. I want the crayfish. No, some of that prawn butter. And this is a thickening agent. I wanted to use the whisk, but I suddenly remember that typically when you put butter, you only dilute it like this by moving the pan around. And if you whisk it, it can change the sauce. So I'm going to do this while it's warming up, and then I'll use a spoon. I may add a hint of parsley in there because I like parsley, but I think tarragon would be something that would be really, really nice. I think the parsley always gives that little something. I've got some left over here because the morels are with the parsley as well. And if you want to go further, you can even add the mushrooms directly in the sauce. So we're ready to serve. My chicken is out of the oven. If you have any juice, you put this on the side, you put this back in the sauce, you swirl, and then we dress. All right, here we are after all this making. The sauce tastes absolutely amazing. And I've actually put on top here, which is said you can add and you can serve with a little bit of that, I keep on calling it crayfish, but the prawn butter, that's what it is. It's kind of melting very, very slowly. But I've added some tarragon leaf, I've put the morels in there, and it would be much more thing to be served with, and I put a little bit of these mushrooms, but really the sauce in here is what is gonna be the bomb, absolutely the bomb. So let me try that like that in the sauce, maybe with a piece of morel there. Oh. That sauce, honestly, is absolutely the type of sauce I can see in a really good restaurant. So luxury garnish, we got, imagine if you have a beautiful white wine, top class, you can add a little bit of this little chili that I had for a little bit of heat. And you've got brown butter, beautiful chicken, nice and moist. You've got the white cooked mushrooms, you've got morels, and they would have truffle with this crayfish. Imagine the indulgence. I cannot believe that this is even a toned down version of that recipe that surely does not resemble the real thing, not even by 50%. And already I am blown away by the combination of flavor you get on here. You got the wine, the Madeira, the prawns, the butter, the chicken, the cream, and it all comes down together in one package. A must try, absolutely. But here we are, that completes our first episode on our 3-part series on compound butter. You've learned how to make the prawn butter and how to use it in a recipe. And as for me, I've been humbled to make that recipe from Fernand Point and the combination of flavor that I would never imagine would work, like prawn and chicken, and that was absolutely stunning. It feels absolutely like a fine dining restaurant. So all what I can say is try it at home and let me know in the comment section what you thought. As for me, I will see you of course next week, where we'll be discovering our second compound butter with another straightforward chicken recipe. I see you then. Take care all. Bye bye.